The 2020 campaign is in its final stretch, and Democratic candidates are raking up the dough. The online donation platform ActBlue saw fundraising booms after the first presidential debate and the death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And former VP Biden's campaign just said it raised $12 million on the day of the vice presidential debate. On that very same night, ActBlue raised more than $9 million between 9 p.m. and midnight alone, when the debate was on. NBC's Chris Jansing has more from the battleground state of Arizona. Chris, what'd you learn?
Well, Joe Biden has marked a stunning turnaround over the last couple of months. He ended the primaries basically broke versus Donald Trump, who had more money in the bank than any presidential candidate at that point ever. But the combination of the grassroots and, as you mentioned, ActBlue, the online platform that keeps Republicans up at night, it's a big difference up and down the Democratic ticket. Take a look. When Wisconsin Democrats held an original cast reading of The Princess Bride, inconceivable! Campaign cash poured in.
The Princess Bride event brought in more than 100,000 people who together contributed $4.25 million. By far, biggest grassroots fundraiser of all time.
When Mitch McConnell moved fast to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg, more than $70 million went to left-leaning candidates and causes in a day, shattering records this campaign cycle for the online fundraising juggernaut ActBlue.
So far, folks have used our platform to donate $3.8 billion to over 21,000 different candidates, committees, and organizations.
The nearly 13 million donors who save their information in the ActBlue system can make a contribution in seconds.
Will you shut up, man?
So while Joe Biden debated, Democrats donated, setting his single-day record. Trump's once major fundraising advantage gone, even as he set records of his own. Is there any Democrat practically in this country that doesn't use ActBlue now?
We work with pretty much everybody on the federal level, and we work all the way down to local school board races.
I have raised approximately $560,000.
With ActBlue, Coral Evans has a real shot at winning a perennially Republican Arizona House seat.
I grew up in public housing. I live in the house my grandfather built, and now I'm able to run for a state seat. And I'm not being financed by, the big people.
75% of her donors gave less than $10.
It evens the playing field. You don't have to be like a billionaire. You don't have to be a millionaire, to support what you value anymore. I think that's what's important about ActBlue.
The RNC sent me a statement arguing that they have the largest get out the vote operation in history, and the ability to buy airtime, they claim, is no substitute for voter context. But ActBlue, in building those donor lists, means that there's access to literally millions of people, an army of Democrats who are willing to volunteer. And that, Stephanie, has implications not just for November, but beyond 2020.
Beyond 2020, I want to stay on that and dig deeper with Steve Schale. He's the executive director of the pro-Biden super PAC, Unite the Country. He worked as Barack Obama's Florida state director during his 2008 campaign, and he was also a senior advisor for his reelection. Steve, always good to see you. This is not just about money. It is about data collection that can be used for years to come. Help us understand how this data is being mined and used for organizations like ActBlue and Hawkfish, that's Mike Bloomberg's tech firm. How is that helping you?
Well, I'll tell you, the great sort of change over the last decade or 2 decades, kind of going back to Obama and even go back as far as Jerry Brown, is realizing that people who volunteer are people that can give money, and people that can give money can volunteer, and that you can take that energy from people who, again, give $25 and turn them into folks who go out and talk to 5 of their neighbors or vice versa. And that's really allowed campaigns to just dramatically scale what they're able to do on the ground. And I would argue, to the Trump point about their grassroots operation, these people who are giving money to Joe Biden are invested in their campaign in a way that people that don't give money aren't. They feel an ownership to it. And being able to harness that energy and turn it into actual work is something that is a huge advantage.
Let's talk about what this Hawkfish data shows. It shows that Democrats are returning ballots more quickly than Republicans, and they're turning out more sporadic voters. What can we expect in the next 25 days? We have this Florida absentee voters chart right up on the screen now.
Yeah. What's interesting is we're seeing, Republicans historically had a huge advantage in vote by mail or absentees in Florida. And frankly, Donald Trump set that whole thing on fire with about 3 tweets. And so you're seeing a a real change in the way people are voting. I mean, it's crazy. You've got something north of 25% of Democrats who requested a ballot have already returned their ballot. 15% of the entire electorate from 2016 has already voted. At this point in the cycle, we were maybe 300,000 people had returned a ballot in 2016. And so, I mean, we're seeing really robust turnout, which is fantastic. It's also interesting. We're seeing a large number of folks who didn't participate in either 16 or 18 show up. And that's actually a little place where we're seeing some real advantages for Joe Biden, which, again, I think, given the fact that more Republicans voted in 16 than 18 in Florida, is something that we have to do to win.
Mike Bloomberg is investing at least $100 million to help Biden win in Florida. Florida is an all-important state for President Trump. From a financial position, what does that do to the Trump campaign? $100 million bucks. I mean, how you like me now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it does two things. I mean, first of all, I mean, it is allowing the sort of the progressive infrastructure in Florida to be funded in a real way. They're putting real dollars into organizations on the ground who are out talking to voters every day. But the big thing, you can see it in Trump's spending. Trump's had to react to it in a real way. He's taking money out of states like Ohio, taking money out of states like Wisconsin and Michigan, investing it in Florida because he has to win here. I mean, the last Republican to go to the White House without winning Florida was Calvin Coolidge. And so there is no gamble for Trump to not win Florida. They have to invest here. And that's making the map easier in other states. You're seeing the combination of super PACs and the campaign run up huge advantages in point levels or TV ads in these other battleground states. And so even if for some reason we don't win Florida, and I'm confident that we're going to be okay here, it's creating a war that Trump can't afford to fight elsewhere. And that's, again, a huge advantage to the rest of the map.
Will he be okay if he doesn't win Florida? President Trump, I mean.
No, I mean, President Trump has to win Florida. The last Republican to go to the White House without winning Florida was Calvin Coolidge. And the other important thing for your viewers is there's been a lot of concern about what happens in these states that count vote-by-mail ballots late. So what happens in Pennsylvania if Trump has a big election day vote, which he's going to have in Florida as well. And then we don't count the vote-by-mail ballots for a week. And what does he try to do to kind of slow that count down? The other thing in Florida is we count these ballots in real time. And so you're going to have probably 70 to 75% of Florida votes that are counted, that are cast before Election Day. Every one of those ballots is going to be counted before Election Day and released by about 7:15 Eastern. And so, and barring something insane, which again, it's Florida, it could always happen. If we see a margin that's outside the recount, which is about 0.5%, we're going to know on election night. And again, if Joe Biden wins Florida on election night, I don't care what Trump does. This thing's over.
Poor Florida. Barring something insane, but then again, it's Florida. Poor Florida. Steve, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks a lot.
What are you going to do?
All right, take care.
Next, we are tracking Hurricane Delta. As it barrels towards southwest Louisiana, it is expected to strike the exact same neighborhoods that are still recovering from a hurricane that took place just 6 weeks ago.